Can you tell me the differences between OSI and TCP/IP?
OSI is a reference model, ma'am. A TCP/IP is an implementation of OSI model, ma'am.
Okay.
TCP/IP has only 4 layers. OSI has 7 layers.
Okay.
And protocols are not strictly defined in TCP/IP. Strictly for in OSI model, ma'am.
Ma'am, I am LT508, ma'am.
508. Okay, only 508.
Yes, ma'am. The minimum size of the OSI is 5 bits, and in TCP/IP the minimum size is 20 bytes, ma'am.
Okay.
OSI is a 7-layered, ma'am. TCP is a 4-layer, ma'am. OSI refers to the open system interconnection, ma'am. In TCP/IP, transition control protocol, ma'am.
Okay. Any one of you again? Other than Gayatri and Chandrika and
Ma'am, 567, ma'am.
567. Okay. What's your name?
Harshita, ma'am.
Harshita, answer.
OSI is protocol independent, ma'am. TCP is protocol dependent, ma'am. And it is horizontal approach, and OSI is vertical approach, ma'am. And in OSI, the model was first developed, and then model was developed before the development of protocol, ma'am. In TCP/IP, protocols are developed first, and then model was developed, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So I have put up certain differences over here for your reference. So this is regarding OSI and this is TCP/IP. So as you said, like all of you, many of you have covered these points. We are just looking at them in detail. Okay, so that's it. So OSI stands for ISO. It was developed by ISO, and OSI refers to Open Systems Interconnection. So this refers to Transmission Control Protocol, and it was developed by ISO and it is developed by ARPANET. So again, some other differences like the distinction between the interfaces, services and protocol is very clearly mentioned in OSI, where the distinction is not very clear in TCP/IP. And then you can see that the OSI uses the network layer to define routing standards and protocols, and it uses the internet layer. That's it. There is just change in the name of the layers. That's it. Okay. And there are 7 layers and 4 layers, and as you said, like the header of the OSI have 5 bytes, and the header is of 20 bytes, and then you can see that the session and presentation layers are part of the OSI model, but you do not have them in TCP/IP, wherein the application layer itself will do all the functionalities, will take up the functionalities of the session and the presentation. So OSI is connection oriented as well as connectionless services. It provides connection oriented and connectionless services. But in the transport layer, it gives the connection oriented services, and TCP gives both. Okay, it supports both the connection oriented and connectionless services. And then the data link and the physical layers are separate layers in OSI, where they both are together in the TCP/IP. Okay, so both are. OSI was after internet, and TCP/IP, as I said, is the older than OSI model. So it is defined before the advent of the internet. So these are some of the differences that you can see between TCP/IP and OSI. So let me again brush on the concept of TCP/IP once, and I'll move on to the next concept of your first unit. So in TCP/IP, as you can just recollect, so you do, these are all the layers in the TCP/IP. So you can see that this is the network interface layer, then you have the internet layer, and then you have the transport layer, and finally on the top you have the application layer. So we'll look into each and every functionality and try to recollect what we have seen in the last class. So at the physical and data link layer, TCP/IP does not define any specific protocols. So there are no specific protocols in the physical and the data link layers. It supports all standard protocols. Okay, so a network in the TCP/IP internetwork can be a LAN or it can be a WAN. Okay, right. And coming to the network layer, which is also called as inter-network layer. So it supports certain protocols over here. The main protocol that it supports is internetworking protocol, which is also called as an IP. And IP uses 4 supporting protocols. They are ARP and RARP and ICMP and IGMP. Can anyone in the class tell me what is ARP? Can you just define me the abbreviation at least? What is ARP?
Address resolution protocol, ma'am.
What is RARP?
Reverse address resolution protocol.
What is ICMP?
Internet control message protocol, ma'am.
IGMP?
Internet group management protocol.
Okay, so we have seen the definitions of all these in yesterday's class. Let us look into what is Internet Working Protocol and then move on with the definitions. So IP is a transmission mechanism used by TCP IP protocols, and it is transmission between host to host. We know like what is the difference between host to host and process to process. So it is between a system, one physical device to another, and IP is reliable. And IP is connectionless protocol, and then a best effort delivery service. What is meant by best effort is that IP provides no error checking or tracking, but still it is reliable. And IP transports data in packets, and these packets are called as datagrams. So the unit here is the datagram, and datagrams are transported separately, and each and every datagram can travel in different routes and can arrive at the destination in out of sequence, or it can be duplicated. So IP uses 4 supporting protocols, as I already mentioned right now, which is ARP and RARP and ICMP and IGMP. So this is regarding Internet Working Protocol, and Address Resolution Protocol, RARP and ICMP and IGMP. I have discussed all these 4 in the previous class. Next, coming to the transport layer protocol. In the transport layer protocol, you can see that there are 3 protocols supported. The first one is TCP, UDP and SCTP. So TCP, as we know, it is transmission control protocol, and UDP stands for user datagram protocol. And these protocols are process to process protocols. These are very important MCQs. So IP is host to host. Okay, so whereas TCP and UDP are process to process protocols, and TCP provides full transport layer services to the applications, and TCP is reliable connection oriented transport protocol, whereas UDP is connectionless. And connection oriented means what? It means that a connection must be established before a dialogue is exchanged. So that is meant by connection oriented. And TCP divides the data into segments, and each and every segment will be having a sequence number, because we already have seen that the datagram can arrive in different timings. Okay, so the first datagram can arrive late, and the second one can arrive first, and the datagrams arrive out of sequence. So the destination have to arrange all the data in sequence. So there will be a sequence number, and there will be an acknowledgement number. So for sending the feedback, whether it has received or not, and these segments are carried across internet inside an IP datagram. Okay, so this segment is put in a datagram. So inside this segment, you'll be having the sequence number. That's why even if the datagram is arriving out of sequence at the destination is able to put the data in order. Then UDP adds only the port address. The port address is the process address, and checks some error control and length information to the data from the upper layers. So UDP protocol does that. And SCTP is stream control protocol, transmission protocol, which supports newer applications such as voice over internet and all that. So this is regarding the third layer. And coming to the topmost layer, which is a 4th layer, which is equivalent to the combination of session, presentation and application layers of the OSI. So you can see that it does all the 3 responsibilities, takes up all the 3 responsibilities of the application, presentation and session layer of the OSI. So this is regarding your TCP IP. Now coming to the next topic. So this is not there in your syllabus, but I just wanted to brief you on make your conceptual knowledge a bit deeper. So I just wanted to tell you 4 levels of addressing that are used in an internet employing TCP IP. So the first kind of address is the physical address, because you will be looking into all this when the data is transmitted. I'm talking about the physical address, MAC, and the logical address and all that. So to make the concepts more clear to you, I have put up this slide. And next you have the port address and the specific address. Let us look into what is the physical address. Physical address is the address that is printed on the NIC cards by your manufacturer. And this address is the address of the node, address of the computer, or the address of laptop. So this NIC physical address identifies a node. And this address is defined in the LAN or the WAN, and it is used in the data link and the physical layers. To identify a node in the physical or the data link layers, the MAC address is sufficient, okay, because they're connected in a LAN, and a computer is identified by the physical address, or you call it as the link address, and this will be sufficient to identify it within the LAN. But if you're having 2 or more LANs connected together, then the MAC address will not be sufficient. This MAC address, or the physical address, or the link you call it as, it is included in a frame, and it is the lowest level address that you can say. And so the physical addresses are not adequate in internet working environments. That's what I'm telling you. Like in case if there are 2 or 3 LANs connected, it's a wide area network. So when you have wide area networks, then maybe these MAC addresses are not sufficient. Why they are not sufficient is because different networks can have different address formats, and the address formats, to identify each and every addressing format, it will be very difficult. So you need an universal addressing system, that is an IP address. That is what is called as a logical address. And how do your MAC address look like? MAC address is a 12 hexadecimal digits. So you can see that all these are separated by a colon here. So it is 6-byte physical address, which is nothing but 12 hexadecimal digits. So the MAC address, you can identify the MAC address of your system also, okay, by typing find my MAC, it will give you your MAC address. So each and every system will be having a physical address which is given by the manufacturer, and the IP address is given by your ISP. ISP is the internet service provider who will be giving the logical address to your system. So why do you need a logical address? You need a logical address so that the addressing scheme is common across all the systems that are connected in an internet. And logical addresses are necessary for universal communications that are independent of underlying physical networks. And now currently we are using 32-bit addressing, which is IPv4, so when a system is given an IP address, as I already previously mentioned, that no systems inside the internet will have the common IP address. Each and every node or the system connected in an internet will have its own IP address. So it is unique address given to a system. And the next is the port address. So the port address means that the address of the process. So what application is running? So there is a communication between the process to process communication happens. So the address of this process and the address of this process, okay, so which are considered to be the port addresses. And the port address is in TCP/IP is 16 bits in length. And coming to the specific addresses are like your emails, okay, or a URL, which is Universal Resource Locator. So like, for example, www.swec.edu.in. So this is a specific address which will take you to the specific pages. And this is again an email address wherein this is the username and this is the domain, okay, so of the Gmail. So it will take you to the specific user. So these are all the 4 addresses that you will be seeing during the transmission, okay? And the physical addresses are used in the lowest level. After the data is transmitted by the physical layer to the destination, at the physical layer of the destination, it will be using the MAC address to identify the system. So these are all the addressing levels, okay? So the 4 levels of addressing that we'll be using in the internet. So next comes, so this marks the end of your first portion of the first unit. And coming to the second part of this first unit, then it is all about the physical layer. So in here we'll be discussing three concepts. The first one is the guided media, and the second one is unguided media, and the third one is data performance. So these three concepts we'll be seeing in the in this particular concept. Okay, fine. Now let us look into what is guided media. So to understand what is guided media, let us look into what happens at the physical layer. Now the data that is moved from the application layer to the physical layer. So at the physical layer, we already have seen how the data moves at the source. From at the source, the data will be moving from the application layer to the physical layer. So that now the data is converted into the binary bits, and these binary bits need to be encoded into a signal. And after it is encoded into a signal, then it will be transmitted through a particular medium. It can be any medium. It can be wireless medium, or it can be wire medium and all that. So it need an appropriate medium to transfer the data and to the destination. Okay, so this transmission we are talking about, at the physical layer, the bits are converted into some signals. Okay, so some electrical signals or whatever it is converted. So those signals, how these signals are transmitted to the destination, so that is called as transmission media. And transmission media is the way in which data is transmitted from one place to another. And you can also say that it provides pathway over which a message can travel from the source to the destination. How a message is transferring from the source to the destination. Say, for example, I am here sitting in the college and you're sitting at your home. Some people are in Hyderabad, some people are in some other state, or some people are in some other parts of Andhra Pradesh, but still we both are able to communicate to each other. How come my the data that I'm generating is reaching you? So there should be some transmission media in between you and I, so which is helping us to communicate. So it provides a pathway over which a message can travel from the source to the destination. So all this is done at the physical layer. So the physical layer, as you know, is the lowest layer, and which is concerned with, as I told you, it is mostly hardware. So which is concerned with the wiring and electrical standards. Okay, so it is responsible for transporting a raw bit stream from one machine to another, converting it into an electrical signal. It provides an unreliable bit transmission service to the layer above it. So the data link layer gets the services from the physical layer. So this is the concept of the physical layer. Now the responsibility of the physical layer is to convert these bits into signals and transmit it via some appropriate medium. And let us look into what are these appropriate mediums. So the transmission mediums there are three types. The first one is the wired or the guided transmission media, and the second one is wireless or the unguided transmission media, and the third one is the satellite media. So in your syllabus, so you can see that there is no satellite over here. So we are not going to deal with how it happens. So the ECE people are more concerned about it. So we'll just look into the basics of guided media and unguided media. So there are three types of transmission: the guided, unguided, and satellite. So the guided is also called as wired transmission. And unguided is called as wireless transmission. So to give examples of wire or the guided transmission, so the first one is the twisted pair cables, and the second one is coaxial cable, which is also called as coax, and then finally the fiber optics. These three are the types of wired connections or wired transmission. And then coming to the wireless or the unguided transmission, the first one is radio frequency, infrared, and microwave. Infrared is where your remote communicates with your TV and all that. Okay, so then finally you have another one, which is satellite communication transmission media. So let us now straight away jump into the concept of wired connections. So these are like guided transmission media, in which what is guided transmission media? So we are saying it is wire connection, right? So I don't want you to get confused. So that's why I have written wire over here, so that you will be able to grab the essence of it. So guided transmission is where the signal is sent through some sort of cables. Okay, so guided transmission is where the signal is sent through some sort of cable. So here physically you have some physical things. There are tangible goods and intangible goods. This is one concept we learned in our science, right? So what are tangible? Tangible things are something which you can see with your eyes and touch with your hands. Intangible are the things which you cannot see and which you cannot touch, but still they exist. So here guided transmission are something which are tangible or have physical existence, meaning that you can see with your eyes, like there is a cable wire, and you can also touch the cable wire. So those are called as the guided transmission, where the signal, okay, so or a signal is nothing but the information or data which is bits converted into a signal is sent through some sort of cable, and generally these cables are copper or fiber optics. So let us look into the first kind of guided transmission, which is twisted pair. So twisted pair is the oldest kind of guided transmission media, and it can transmit both analog and digital signals. Both it can transmit, and so it consists of pair of copper wires. Okay, so it have a pair of copper wires, meaning there are two copper wires here. Typically, the length of this copper wires will be 1 mm thick, insulated. So these copper wires are insulated with plastic and twisted together in a shape of helical form. Okay, so helix form, or you can say that the DNA strand, right? So the DNA molecule will be something like this. So each of us have a DNA, right? So the DNA defines like how we look, the color, the features that we possess, all that, the behaviors, all that certain things comes from our ancestors. So the DNA strand, each and every one of us will be having a DNA. So not to get into science, but just understand how a DNA strand looks like. So a DNA strand is a helical form. So it looks like this. It's like two. The molecule will be having two lines like this, which will be twisted. So you can say that these twist over here, okay, so is considered to be a helix or helical form. So even your twisted pair will look like a DNA strand, which is like two copper wires with 1 mm thickness, and insulated with the plastic outside, and then twisted together in a shape similar to a helix. Okay, so the shape will be like this. And here the bandwidth depends on the thickness of the wire. Okay, so here the more the bandwidth, the thickness, it depends on the thickness. How thick the copper wire is, based on that the bandwidth is dependent. And copper is used because of good performance at low cost. So here we are saying like we are using the copper wires instead of a glass wires. Okay, so fiber optics use some glass inside it, but here the copper wires are used. Why we are using copper wires is because it's a good conductor anyway, and then is because of good performance it can give at a lower cost. You get copper at a lower cost compared to the other transmission medium. And then the twisted pairs consists of two conductors. So these two wires that I'm talking about, the pair of copper wires that I'm talking about, are two conductors. Copper is a good conductor, right? Each with its own plastic insulation twisted to form a single media. So they both are twisted together to form a single media. So let me show you the picture of how your twisted copper pair looks like. So this is a twisted copper pair. So you have here in this example, you're having 8 wires which are making 4 pairs. So this is an example of your a twisted pair. And so let us look into another point. Out of these 2 pairs, only one carries actual signal and the other is used for a ground reference. So you can see that you have a blue color here, and the complement of this is a white one with a blue line on it, meaning that they both need to be twisted. So in the similar way, like the orange with white and orange, and then green and green, white and green, and then brown and white and brown. So you can see that you can attach a twisted pair cable to a modular connector or a jack. So you will be attaching it to a modular connector or a jack. Remember this jack, I'll be showing you this jack in the later slides. So these are twisted pairs, and so these twisted pairs will be connected to a jack. So now, since this is showing me it's an 8 wires, so each and every 8 wire will be having its own functionalities. and wherein it is transmit and receive, and then some are used for future, from some are given for the future use in case if you want to connect something else, then you also have two pairs available for that purpose. So you can see the combinations, okay, so how they are connected and all that. Okay, fine. So this is considered to be a twisted cable. Some other points of the twisted pair are like twist, why we are twisting over here. So this is again an important point to understand. The twisting happens because two parallel lines, if you are not twisting and you simply have two parallel lines like this, for example, you are not twisting, these two are the two copper wires that you have. Now what happens is they will act like an antenna. Okay, so when they are in parallel wires like this, they act like an antenna. So what happens when there is an antenna like this? The wires radiate the energy out. So rather than transmitting the energy, they emit the radiation. So to actually reduce that radiation, or so the wire can radiate less, what we do is we are twisting the wires. So upon twisting, what happens is the waves from different twists will cancel out each other and radiation will be less effective. So that's the reason why the wires are twisted. So, and technically speaking, so wires also help in reducing the noise. So what is noise? Noise is electromagnetic interference. So EMI stands for electromagnetic interference, which is called as noise. So as I already told you, like if they are in parallel, they emit radiation because they act like an antenna. So and also this twisting will avoid crosstalk. Crosstalk, you might have encountered a crosstalk when you are talking with somebody on phone. So maybe some others discussions also you are able to hear sometimes. Okay, so it is because of some problem in the wire, you can actually get a crosstalk. So all this can be reduced by using the twisted pair. So the reason for twist is this. And so these twisted pairs are used in telephone lines to provide voice and data channels. Okay, not only for the voice, they are used for data channels. That's why I told you that they are used for both analog and digital signals, transmitting analog and digital signals. And the next point is twisted pairs can run several kilometers without amplification. Amplification is strengthening the signal. If there are very long distances, then obviously you need a repeaters which will actually strengthen the signal and retransmit it again. So these are the points of the twisted pairs. So what is a twisted pair and all that. And coming to the types of the twisted pairs, you do have two types, which are UTP and STP. So the first one is unshielded twisted pair and the second one is shielded twisted pair. Examples of UTP are category 3 and cat 5. So they are also called as cat 3 and cat 5 cables. So category 3 and category 5, you do have category 6 and category 7 and 8, all that is there in the market. Examples are that cat 3, cat 5, cat 6, all these are examples of unshielded twisted pair. And examples of the shielded twisted pair is IBM STP-A. Now coming to the this one, which is shielded twisted pair cables, which was introduced in 1980s, okay, so early 1980s by IBM, and so that's why it is called as IBM STP-A. So now what happened is, like, which is popular among UTP and STP? UTP is popular, which is widely used. UTP is widely used. Why STP failed is because it have not proven popular outside IBM installations. So outside IBM, you can see STP only in IBM installations. Other than IBM installations, it did not take popularity. So that's why STP is not used. And also there are several other reasons why STP did not become popular, because it's very expensive compared to UTP and all that. So you can see the difference over here. So herein I have put a picture which shows the differences between UTP and STP. So the difference is shown here. So I have put a box over here to show the difference. So here you can see that there is a shielding. So there is a metallic shielding over here. And here the wires are just put in a plastic insulator, that's it. Okay, right. But here you can see that there is a metallic shielding over here, so that's why it is costly, because it has some extra things happening, extra connections, extra things that we need for as a raw material. So that's the reason it is costly. And this is UTP, you can see unshielded, so it do not have any kind of metallic shielding over here. So I think the diagram is clear. So let us look into some of the points of UTP. So UTP stands for, like unshielded twisted pair, and they are used for LAN and telephone connections. And the cost is less than STP, as you have already seen, like it does not have an a metallic coating, metallic thing wrapped around it. And the next one is it is easily available. It's very common. That's why. So there are it is very popular. So that's why it is very easily available, and it's very common across the networks. And so it consists of 2 or 4 pairs of twisted cables. So that's what we have seen, right? So like it consists of 2 or 4 pairs of twisted cables. In this particular example, you can see like there are 4 twisted cables. Okay, so you can see like there are 4 twisted cables having 8 in the similar way, like it can have 2 pairs, meaning that there are 4 wires. 2 pairs means that there are 4 wires. 4 pairs means that it is having 8 pins. That's why in the previous case I have shown you 8 pins over here. Okay, so 4 pairs means that 8 pins. Okay, so each and every pin will be having its own functionality. As I told you, like there is a jack, right? So I said, yeah, if you remember, so we said like twisted pair cable to a modular connector or a jack. So we call this as a modular connector or a jack. So that's what is this RJ. Okay, so RJ refers to registered jack. So there are some kinds. Okay, so not only 2 kinds I am listing over here for your understanding. So the first one is the first registered jack is RJ11 connector. So it's a connector and it's not the cable. Cat5 and Cat3, all that, those are the twisted pairs. RJ11 and RJ45, all these are the connectors, okay, the jacks. So this is a jack in which like the twisted pairs are connected. So it decides on how the cabling need to be done inside the jack and all that. So 2 very popular jacks are RJ11 and RJ45. So you can see like RJ11, like wherein there will be 2 pairs, meaning that 4 wires will be there, and 4 pairs wherein there will be 8 wires. And RJ11 is used for telecommunication and telephone line, connecting telephone lines. And RJ45, this jack is used for Ethernet cabling in computer networks. So this is regarding the UTP. And let me give you the difference between category 3 and category 5. So coming to the category 3 and category 5, this is the difference, and what you can observe between these 2 things. Can anybody tell me what you observed between these 2? Just believe your eyes, that's it. There is no technical answer. Whatever you see with your eyes, you tell.
More twisting.
There are more twistings in Cat5 than Cat3. That's the only difference between Cat3 and Cat5. Okay. So Cat3 twisted pair cable consists of 2 insulated wires gently twisted together. So you can see gently twisted. Now you have 4 of these pairs are twisted and wrapped in plastic, which I already told you, and these are used in before 1988. So after 1988, Cat5 have come, and Cat5 you can see there are more twists per centimeters. And Teflon insulation is used to reduce the amount of external interference and improve the signal quality. So Cat5 is used now extensively. Okay, so that's the difference between category 3 UTP and category 5 UTP. Right. So next, coming to the shielded twisted pair, I already told you. So it is introduced in the early 1980s by IBM. And so the types of cables have metal foil covering which encases each pair of insulator conductors. So I showed you that. Okay, so you do have this one, right? So you have this insulation, metal foil. Okay, right. And the metal casing prevents. Why do you have the metal casing? The metal casing prevents noise and crosstalk. Noise is your EMI, which is electromagnetic interference, and then it allows higher transmission rates, and then it is expensive than coaxial cable and UTP. So it is expensive. That's the reason why people prefer coaxial cables or UTP. So most commonly you will be seeing UTP in the cabling. So this is regarding the guided transmission medium, which is twisted pair.